Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there.
So, guys, we want to again, look deeper into everything that's going on, deeper into our world around us, the mysteries, the things that are hidden in plain sight, and the things that most people don't have a clue about.
Well, they might not have time to even get a clue about because they're so busy.
Yeah, it's you got to go deeper. We need to all go deeper to understand. Well, why do we believe what we believe? Why do we take some things as gospel? And why do we even have that phrase that we're taking something as gospel? And some people will get offended just saying that, but it's because most people don't understand the history of how things are. And when we look at revisionist history, those that win the wars write the history. Those are in control write the history. Do we trust the mainstream media? No. Do you trust MSNBC to be telling you all the truth? CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC for those, for that matter. I don't think so. I don't think most people do anymore. I think most people don't trust, but it's getting there. More and more people all the time are starting to recognize that. And yes, even when we're talking official sources like NASA and NOAA and all the official agencies that tell us certain things, such as, world's hottest year ever, and then, by the way, 5 years later, it's revised. History that gets revised, science that gets revised. So, what are the origins of many of our religious beliefs, and what are they really talking about?
The only origins I know are the ones I went to Sunday school and learned, and that's what they gave me.
That's what they gave you, but you're blessed in that you have the insight and the ability to see into things, and that's been developed. It's a gift with you, but it's also being developed. Here you see 10 oldest religious texts in the world. And, we know that there are some ancient texts that come out of Sumeria. And again, who was Abraham? Well, where did he come from? Well, this is where he came from. Or the Chaldees in Sumeria. So, the texts that we have in these Sumerian cuneiform writings that have been deciphered, they're way older than anything biblical, as we're going to see. So this Kesh temple hymn from Sumer, which was discovered in 1909, was written 2600 BC-ish. So about 4,600 years ago. Very, very old and ancient. And as we know, when we're talking about like the stories of Noah and the biblical flood and all these, they actually come from writings that are thousands of years older. Thousands.
And that's probably what really got me asking questions is when I did realize, oh, wow, all these same stories are way older than they told me.
And they're way more detailed. So then you recognize you got one line that's basically giving you a piece of a story that might be 200 words, 300 words, and you're getting, 10, 14 words edited again, and just little blurbs, Reader's Digest for those of you that remember that. And the pyramid texts, they're from Egypt. They date between 2400, 2300 BC. So we know the Egyptian tradition, way older than everything out of our Abrahamic tradition. And the same thing with the Sumerian tradition. And these are also out of Egypt. And this is the coffin text, 2100 BC. The Epic of Gilgamesh, 2100 BC. And then it gets into the Vedas as well, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And, this is another Egyptian one from 1900 BC. So, these are the oldest texts that we have. These are far, far older than what we really have as far as how about the oldest known copy of the Bible? Well, it's from about somewhere in between 3 and 400 AD. 3 and 400 AD. Yeah, because Constantine put it together with the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. When you look at what do we actually have, because people still believe that we actually have handwritten books that were given to us by Moses, that Moses wrote them down. That's not the case. It's not even close. Not even close. The Codex Sinaiticus is the oldest one. And, again, there's translating, as we have talked about. We've seen, thousands of edits in these translations. So, again, it's not gospel. I guess you could say. Gospel literally means good news, which the teachings of Christ, are gospel in that sense. But what are the true teachings of Christ? If you have thousands of edits and revisions, how do you know what the true teachings of Christ are? Who told you? Well, the Roman Emperor did, and all the people that worked under him. See, this is part of what some people can't get into their heads because they've been so indoctrinated and brainwashed that they can't understand that, sure, there could have been a Christ, but it might not have been exactly as we thought him to be. He might have been a little different than we think.
Well, definitely different than we think. They gave us a mold and an idea that they wanted us to follow to keep us controlled.
How about the oldest Old Testament books? What's the oldest full copy of the Old Testament that we have? Well, the Dead Sea Scrolls are the oldest manuscripts. They're roughly from about 100 CE to 200 BCE. So they could have been put together sometime 200 years, maybe at the most, before Christ, or even they might not have been put together until 100 years almost after Christ. The thing is, the Dead Sea Scrolls have two very incomplete copies of Genesis. 1 Q-gen and 2 Q-gen. These are not complete copies. We don't have any full complete copies. Well, what's the oldest complete copies we have of, say, the book of Genesis? And if we're not talking about this Codex Sinaiticus, well, you gotta go almost 1,000 years later. That's a long time. That's a lot of revisionist history that could be in there. And for those of you that have really done any sort of Bible studying, there's the Elohist part of the Bible that's written by somebody that talks about God in the term El. And El was this supreme god of the Canaanites, which it was Canaan before it was Israel and Judea, before there was even Palestine, and then back into Israel. So El was the supreme god of the Canaanites. And then there's the Yahwist text too. And then there's one that has been done later and is basically done by a group. And these people, what they would do, these translators, the ones that would pass things on, as in most cases, things were first, passed on orally and then eventually got written down over time. So there's a lot of room for error in there. And of course, the Yahwist is from Yahweh, and that's an interpretation of God's name, which comes out of the Tetragrammaton, which is Yod He Vav He, because they would never put the vowels in, because then you have power. When you can name something, you have power over it, and that's getting into the magical side of it. And there is, the whole Kabbalah to study, which is its own system, which really is talking about consciousness. It's not talking about getting down on your knees and praying to God for salvation or mercy. No. The Kabbalist studies consciousness, studies how the universe works, and recognizes that the parables are for the masses. Just as is plainly said, parables are for the masses. We teach them in simple terms so they can understand things of a simple manner. But the mysteries are taught to the inner circle. And so, when we study Kabbalism and we study the Western mystery tradition, we're talking about the things that were hidden from the masses, which is all about, again, it's awakening the Kundalini. It's about developing the light body. It's about the multidimensionality of us all, the potential.
And there are, ways to do these things and do them safely too. So I can understand when it comes to the energy body controlled information, because it really truly is very powerful.
There's some things that are just curious. Have you ever heard of sitting Shiva?
No.
Sitting Shiva is a term used to describe the action of Jewish mourners participating in the traditional rituals of observing a Shiva. During the period of Shiva, mourners sometimes sit on low stools or boxes while they receive condolence calls. So this is, a process of mourning. This is when somebody dies. What do? it's kind of like a funeral rite. It's when people come to a wake and they, say, I'm so sorry for your loss. And they all pray together. It's called sitting Shiva. Now, is that just a coincidence? Because Shiva, as we see here, is the god of death, destruction, disease, but also of renewal. There's many different aspects to Shiva. And it's spelled the same way, and it's basically said the same way. So that is maybe just a coincidence, or do you think maybe there's a common root there?
Oh, no, I definitely feel there's a common root there.
So which root is the common root? Because as we see, the Vedas are far older than anything we have coming out of the Abrahamic tradition. So it makes you wonder. And you see this, I got this off of academia, Abraham and Brahma. And I've talked about this a little bit before. Divine covenants of common origin. Because when we look at like the ancient historians that we pull from, going back to the ancient Greeks even. So we see Flavius Josephus in the Antiquities of the Jews. Now again, this is one of the oldest writings we have. He quotes Aristotle, who lived around 384 to 322 BC, as saying that the Jews are derived from the Indian philosophers and are known as the Kalani. Interesting. So they're saying that the Jews actually come from the Indian Brahmin class. Brahman. Brahma. Abraham. Right? And who is Abraham's wife? Sarah. Right? And who's Brahma's wife? Sarasvati.
Right. So look at all these parallels and commonalities. Very interesting.
And it's not just Flavius Joseph quoting Aristotle. There are other references in ancient antiquity which are older references than anything we have as far as a complete Bible by like 600 years, 700 years, or anything that we have, in the Old Testament that's complete as well by hundreds of years. And they're saying that the Jews are actually a sect that comes from India. Is that not fascinating? And there is actually a lot of this, a lot of interesting things. So we have Abraham, Brahma, Sarasvati, Sarah. We have sitting Shiva as well. Very, very interesting stuff, to say the least.
Well, I think so. I mean, I love this stuff. When I find it, it helps in the awakening.
So we see there is also the statement that Ur of the Chaldees, the home of Abraham mentioned in the Bible, was actually Ur of the Chaldeans. Chaldean, he continues, is actually Kal Deva, or the Holy Kals, a Brahmanical caste of India. The Kals and Kalas are today considered to be a tantric tradition as well. So he writes that the tribe of Brahmin, Abraham was expelled from or left India and settled in Goshen in Egypt. Finally, he states that Arabian historians contend that Brahma and Abraham, their ancestors, are the same person. So everything gets rewritten, and I just, it always kind of amazes me how people will say, how could you believe anything mainstream? How could you believe, and say whatever NASA or NOAA or any of the official sources for scientific information are saying, and then believe the version of these books, these writings, because, again, the Bible is a collection of 66 hand-chosen selections by the Roman Emperor. How could you believe in that version? The version that every president puts his hand on, whether it's Bush, whether it's a Clinton, whether it's Obama, Trump even, and now Biden, they all put their hand on it and swore by it. And if you look at Twitter, it seemed to me that, say, Marco Rubio, for instance, and other, Haley, the speaker that was always speaking for President Trump, every second tweet is a Bible verse. And I could see what they're doing. They're trying to rile up their base, the right base, and get them angry, and they're using it to control them. And then, of course, vice versa happens as well in different ways. But again, it's a tool. As we've said, in 1871, Albert P. Ike, spoke about 3 world conflicts, and it was all about, being manufactured through religion and politics as well. But, again, when people think something is the word of God, of the creator of everything, then almost anything becomes justified in the name of God, the creator of everything, even atrocities. And the atrocities are well documented. So why are we pointing this out? Well, because, you can't know that that's accurate. Well, if there's thousands of revisions, how accurate can it be? What are the true teachings? Again, you got to go on the inside and discover for yourself what your truth is.
Well, yeah, and then I have to ask myself, who made these revisions? Who decided what the revisions would be? And on and on and on. So it's just like this endless list of questions that people could and should be asking.
And we've talked about how everything gets taken literal by the masses instead of looking for the symbolism. So, Jacob becomes Israel. Why? Well, because he sees the angels ascending and descending on the ladder, thus Jacob's ladder. So, were they really climbing a ladder all the way up to a spaceship, to a star, to a different dimension? Or is that ladder symbolic of consciousness? Is it symbolic of maybe, the ladder of the spine and the 33 vertebrae, 33 degrees? The reality of things is there's symbolism there that does have serious meaning. And so, there's 33 vertebrae, 33 degrees in Freemasonry. What year did Jesus, quote unquote, die? He was 33, right? There you go. Jacob becomes Israel because he wrestles with the angel of God, strives with him until the angel touches him and puts his hip out. Interesting, right? And so he's renamed Israel, because he has strived with God. And he's seeing God face to face. And where is that? Well, he saw God face to face in Peniel. Pineal. The only way you could see God face to face is if your pineal gland is decalcified and you have your kundalini activated and you're developing your Merkaba. Then you have the conscience to see. The all-seeing eye is all about that. It's not necessarily that the bad guys are watching us, but they are, everything. But it's also that they have activated pineal glands. They can see the reality that's around us. They recognize things. They can see the energy beings that are around us as well. The symbology is right there. It's all right there. Here's your pyramid in the yogic posture with the pineal gland activated, which becomes the third, the all-seeing eye. Let thine body be full of light. There you go. Your eye is single, then your body shall be full of light. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Matthew 6:26. That's talking again about the pineal gland. It's the symbolism. How about Israel? Well, what else? It's interesting that you could break it down is Ra'el, Isis, Ra, and El. Isis, is the mother goddess energy. Ra is the sun energy. So here we have representations of divine masculine, divine feminine, of the yin and the yang. And then, El, we could also look at it as in human form. El was the supreme god of the Canaanites. There's so much to this. How about the Temple of Solomon? Break down Solomon. You have Sol. Sol is sun. Man, no, you got moon, sun and moon. And you could see when we get into the Western mystery tradition, and the symbols for the elements and all they put together do represent the six-pointed star, which also is representative of other things. So here you see mother matrix, matter. This is Isis and Ra. We could also look to this as Shakti and Shiva. And then there you go. The divine child. Humans. Us. It's all right there, but it's not to be taken in a literal sense by those that understand. To those that don't understand, and they're kept in the dark, then they're going to keep believing in the literal meaning of these stories, which are allegories. They happen way after the fact.
Yeah, it makes me sad too, because they'll continue to just be controlled.
It does allow the control. So when we look at the six-pointed star, like Star of David, what is it really symbolic of? It's symbolic of the Merkaba. When you put it into a three-dimensional aspect, it's the light body. That's what it's all about. When we look over at the Sri Yantra, you could see the Merkaba in it. You could also see the AllSeeing Eye in it. And you could see the actual matrix of this reality in it if you meditate deep enough on it.
Oh, you can, and it's fun.
It is, and we have this exact one. We have a couple of them to meditate on. Everything is right out there for us. This is a Dyson sphere. A Dyson sphere is a structure that would be created around the star in order to harness the energy of the star. And this would be by a level 2 civilization, if I believe I'm right. I think it would be a level 2 civilization on the Kardashev scale. It's right at the Vatican. So, they're giving us hints, they have to, that our whole reality, everything, our solar system, is basically under the control of certain beings. The pine cone is representative of the pineal gland. Again, all the symbolism is right there for everyone to see. So who are these beings that are really in control? Well, they have a serpentine nature. And if you have listened to David Icke at all, they're reptilians. They're actually the Draco. Is this really what we picture Christ as? I don't think so, but it's there in the Vatican. It is there in the Vatican, as well as other things in the Vatican.
Just their little pet there.
Yes. So we need to look deeper for all those that are still looking at everything in such a superficial light. The second coming of man, Christ himself said, when you hear people saying, look here for me, look there for me, don't believe them. I'm inside you. The Christ consciousness is what it's about. It's that which needs to be cultivated inside of everyone. The second coming comes one person at a time.
One person at a time, and this is something I really want to kind of press, is that, is not going to be on the outside of you. It's definitely a vibration, and it's a vibration that we can all attain.
It is. It's attainable. It just takes some work.
Yes, absolutely.
So make sure you are subscribed, guys. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. As always, may you guys be blessed with abundant peace, love, happiness, and all good things as we take our own power back in this world, one mind at a time.
Absolutely. One mind at a time. I'm going to do it too.
Sure.
Okay.
God bless and namaste.
Namaste.